Welcome into Pallilo Points. I'm Brandon Stranger, Sports Map Houston. That's Charlie Pallilo. You can catch him on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 weekdays from 10 to noon. While you're here watching this, hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate the support. Hey, Charlie, welcome in. We didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, but before the lockout, Carlos Correa and AJ Hinch made a media splash by being seen having breakfast together. And last week, Buster Olney revealed that meeting went beyond their shared love of tiny boxwoods. Sometime prior to the lockout, the Tigers reportedly offered Correa a 10-year, $275 million contract. I just want to get your opinion, get your immediate feedback on that. Are you more surprised by that number from the Tigers, or are you more surprised that Correa would decline that sporty offer?
Really a no and a no. To go as long as 10 years, but at only $27.5 million per year, that the Tigers would stretch their budget when they're within a couple of years of finally getting out of the Miguel Cabrera contract, where they are as a franchise, to make a big splash. From Correa's side, that he turned it down, not at all. Certainly before, absolutely, certainly after Corey Seager got 10 years, $325 for the Rangers. So that's going to be part of the storyline of the ongoing Correa negotiations whenever the lockout wraps up. He has in his mind that he's better than Seager. He's better than Francisco Lindor. So if Seager got $325 and Lindor got $341, well, I should be getting at least $342. Problem is, your market is ultimately what someone will pay you, and other teams have every right and, frankly, brain to say, the Mets were idiotic giving up talent and then giving Lindor $341 million. The Rangers were desperate and probably overdid it, going 10 years, $325 million for Corey Seager, who, by the way, is a better hitter than you. So it's going to be a little bit of a game of chicken if we're into February. Spring training is getting ready to start in March because the lockout is settled. Does Correa blink and have to settle for merely somewhere upwards of $250 million?
Well, we've heard rumblings of perhaps what he was looking for from the Astros being somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 years, $245 million. But here he is turning down, which is 35 per. Yeah. So the per year is definitely higher and maybe not as long of a deal. So given what we're hearing here, do you think he's turning down the situation more than he's turning down the money? In other words, would he take less to go into a winning situation, or is that just a case of less guaranteed years, but he wants more per?
Yeah, I think it's a sliding scale. And Correa is doing nothing wrong, and any of us in the same spot might be saying, no, I'm going to hold out. I want more years. I want more money. I want more money. I want more years. Who's going to give it to me? If in the end, at least as a daily double, no one is going to give you both 10 years and $35 million per season, well, that's the art of the deal, right? Where do you negotiate downward from as opposed to your floor where you try to work up from? And Correa is no doubt hoping that the major market, look, in the end, they can spend whatever they choose to spend, players get involved, i.e. the Yankees, i.e. the Dodgers. I guess Chicago Cubs fans were singing around a Christmas tree and changing one of the words of the song to Correa, come play in Chicago instead of in Excelsis Deo, or whatever the words are. I can't believe in his heart of hearts he's thinking, I want to go to Detroit. Even if AJ Hinch is the manager and they have a nice collection of young talent on the cusp already there, I think Correa wants it all. Who among us doesn't? But sometimes you need to settle for 80, 90% of what's still a very, very large pie.
Indeed. And what's interesting about this is that the teams that are in the market for a shortstop, or seemingly in the market for a shortstop, are the teams that you would want to be in the market for a shortstop, because it's teams that can spend money and teams that win. And so one of those teams that you mentioned was obviously the Dodgers. And, we keep hearing about that potentially being a landing spot. At least that's what we heard before this report came out. And we remember before Seager signed that massive deal with Texas, he had reportedly declined an 8-year, $250 million deal from the Dodgers. So with that in mind, and then kind of juxtapose that with what Carlos declined for Detroit, I guess I'm having a hard time reconciling those numbers to see why the Dodgers wouldn't, if they were going to spend that type of money, wouldn't they have just spent it on Seager?
Keep one of their own, homegrown guy, a star who has been a most valuable player of both the League Championship Series and a World Series. It's like Correa has a head and shoulders advantage in postseason performance. So a lot of moving parts. The Braves never got Freddie Freeman re-signed. Some think the Dodgers could make a move on him if Atlanta really ultimately drops the ball or says, we're just not going to a sixth year, Freddie. The Dodgers, with the losses to their pitching staff, notably Scherzer to the Mets, if they can't make a big play in pitching, well, they're going to try to fortify their lineup. And they know the market they are in. It's not like Dodger Stadium will be drawing 12,000 per game, but they can't just have multiple stars walk out and cry poverty and replace none of them. Trey Turner, who they got with Scherzer, well, he moved to second base while Seager was still at short. They could move him to second to accommodate Correa. Turner's also 1 year away from free agency himself. So there's going to be no poorhouse situation for Carlos Correa. And reality is ego has salary in a public knowledge salary world as another scoreboard. So Correa is going to feel like that he's been jobbed if he doesn't get at least $300 million and at least 8 years, if not 10, especially since Seager got both 10 years and over $300 million. But just because the Rangers made a move that no other team was willing to make doesn't mean that some team has to make the same move with Correa. Two guys with ample injury histories.
So I guess, and to close it out, I guess I want your opinion on how you would rank these by likelihood, these scenarios. Carlos Correa compromises to stay with Houston in some form or fashion. I assume both sides would have to compromise, but they come to some sort of an agreement here. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is Bregman moves to short and opens up an opportunity to bring in a third baseman that makes the Astros a little bit more flexible. Or the third option is they either put Diaz or one of the young guns at short and just continue as is.
Well, I guess the name I would add to the mix is Trevor Story if he's the middle ground candidate. I don't see Bregman going to short. I don't think Bregman, as this coming season, he will cross the line where he's closer to 30 years of age than he is 25. The multiple leg injuries in his history now. I think moving him to a more demanding, more physically difficult, everyday defensive position, not in the cards. Levis Diaz would be a poor defensive shortstop. I don't think they hope to go that route either. I think on Correa, the Astros would have to bend a whole lot because I think at the end of the day, the floor for Correa is probably going to be at least 7 years or at least $30 million plus per season. Well, the Astros supposedly offered $5,160. Would the Astros go to 7 years, $225, which is just over the $32 million per year? Well, Correa is probably thinking, $225, you still insult me. And I think there is a team out there that will offer him at least $275, even if the Twins offer is now gone, with them having signed Javi Baez. So Bregman at short, I will put last. Story or another temp type guy. If it's Andrelton Simmons, nice defense, but man, bottom third of your batting order now stinks if you go that route. It just doesn't feel like the bridge is short enough to be bridged between the Astros and Correa. But I guess we can go with never say never on that.